but he knows his name.
Welcome, everybody, to the DPOA podcast. I am here at Fitness for 10, and I will let my guest introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Saletti. I'm a member here, and that's how we met.
And she is a teacher in education, and that is always a fascinating field, right?
Yes, very.
You get some interesting characters in your classes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I started really young at 21, teaching high school junior, so it was definitely interesting at first, but now
What's the process of the doesn't it take a long time to become a teacher?
About 4 years. I went to University of Nevada, got my bachelor's degree in 4 years exactly, and then came right back to where I went to high school to teach. And then I got my master's degree online. So I just did it pretty quick and jumped right in.
Wow. That's intense. Like, that's a lot of learning. That's a lot of that whole process, right? Like, that's a lot. Like, to go into education and to understand that teachers, the way the pay is, why did you go into teaching?
I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was like 15, and I just always stuck with it, and I wanted to do something that fulfilled me and where I could be home with my family at night and be home for holidays. And I definitely think I chose the right career, even though it's hard sometimes. So I think I'm in the right spot.
Definitely. So the big thing like that about this podcast today is about how your mindset and learning and how that becomes a role later in life. I think that's important for kids. I think certain kids like lack that mindset of that they can do something, that they can get through issues. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Especially now after COVID, I think everything's different. We call it a growth mindset at school versus a fixed mindset. So I think it is an issue for younger generations, even me. I mean, I'm part of the same generation as a lot of the kids I teach. And so I totally agree with you.
The funny thing that you say that you talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset, I recently purchased the rights for a program, and now it's my program, and how it talks about the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And there's a big difference.
Absolutely.
And you got to be kids now. It seems like they look at social media and they're like, I want to be a Jake Paul, or I want to be a Logan Paul, or I want to be, or who's ever more current than them online. Do you see?
Yeah.
Do you see some of your students that want that, or what do you see from some of your students?
I think so. I think social media has changed everything, because that's kind of what is seen as reality when it's not. You only see the good things on social media. You don't see the reality. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand, especially at a young age.
I agree.
While you're growing and you're learning who you are as a person and friends and all that on top of that. So I do think social media negatively impacts their mindset for sure. There's a lot of good things about it for everyone, but there's a lot of cons too. And
I think balance, like in life, balance is key, right? Balance is key with anything. So I think for me, I didn't have social media when I was in school. MySpace was creeping into my demographic, my age demographic. But once I hit that point, MySpace eventually went, and Facebook and everything else and Instagram and all that started to really pop in. And the one thing that's been said by many different people on the internet is that the image that people put out there, that's a snapshot. And people don't realize that when people go on vacations or when they're going on trips, that's a snapshot for a majority of people. Like, they don't live that vacation lifestyle. No. There are some people that are rich, right? That have that money that can go do those things, like, without having to clock into a place to work. But they see that online. Wouldn't you say that kind of, if you're not aware enough and help your kid be aware enough that's just a snapshot. They may take that as like, oh, wow, I want to be doing all those things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. They think they have to be a certain way or look a certain way or do what is cool. And like you said, it is just a snapshot. It's not reality to how most of us live. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, people are going to live luxuriously, that you see that online, but that doesn't mean you have to live that way to be happy. I hope they can realize that just having a simple, normal life, you can be happy too, and not be fixed on being like what they see on social media.
I think that really can warp your mind, and again, it goes back to balance. So that's really key. So I want to read you something.
Okay.
Teachers are inspired to pursue teaching for a variety of reasons. Some are motivated by a genuine passion for sharing knowledge and helping others learn. Others may have had a positive experience with their own teachers and want to make a similar impact on future generations. Additionally, some individuals are drawn to teaching because they enjoy working with young people and want to contribute to their development and growth. Overall, the desire to make a positive difference in the lives of others and to contribute to the betterment of society are common motivations for becoming a teacher. What inspired you / motivated you to become a teacher?
Kind of a mix of all of that, to be honest. I was a very into school type of kid. So I played all the sports. I was in leadership. I loved going to school. I was sad when I graduated. I love my teachers. I was kind of not a teacher's pet, but I got along with them. I had good relationships with them. And I kind of realized that wasn't the norm around me. And that pushed me to want to be a teacher. Also, just my amazing teachers that I had as well inspired me. But now that I'm in the role that I'm in as a young teacher, I do relate to them. I went through schooling during COVID like they did. I can kind of be on their same level while also being in an authoritative role. So it's hard to balance that sometimes, but I am in it because I love my students and I truly care for them and I just want to see them be successful and be passionate about what they do, not pushing college on them or pushing a certain career, but just being a role in their life to help them find what they love and to love what they do, because that's what I have found.
Do they see you, since you are so young?
Yeah.
Okay, since you are very young.
Yeah.
Do they see you differently than some of like the older teachers that are on at the school? Do they?
I think absolutely, yeah. It took me some years to kind of gain my footing, because I taught all freshmen when I first started. So that was at least quite a bit of an age gap. But now I teach juniors and seniors and I'm only 25. So yeah, I think they do perceive me differently than older teachers, because some of them were even my teachers when I went there. They're my coworkers now. So I think they do look at me different, but there are pros and cons because they trust me. We have a good relationship. I'm on their level when we talk and they can come to me when they have problems, or I can kind of be a safe space for them. But then there's also the difficulties of kind of creating those boundaries and like showing that I am the adult in the room when I look like they do. That can be hard sometimes. So I'm learning and growing like they are, and I've learned from mistakes and I'm trying to be better every day. And I think it's just a learning process and getting better every year. Because if you don't get better every year as a teacher, I don't think you're doing it right. You have to always improve.
Wow. That's amazing. That is, for a lot of people, inspiration, motivation to do something, it calls to them, like teaching for you called to you. Social media just called to me because ever since I was a kid, I had the camera on me. It was like me, film, take pictures of me. Like I just And now it kind of just makes sense now. Like, I film myself. I take pictures of myself all the time in the gym, working out, doing different videos and creation. So it's like when you have a passion for something, like you have a passion for teaching, right? Or you wouldn't do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't.
You know, it's not the money that keeps you there. It's the passion to help mold the minds of the next generations, right?
Absolutely. And just being a constant, steady adult figure in their life. Because I'm realizing now that I'm older, I was very fortunate to be raised the way I was with both parents. You know, I never had to worry about food on the table. I always got to do all the sports I wanted to do. And I'm now learning that is rare, and a lot of kids don't get that. And so just to be an adult in their life that knows that I love them, I care for them, I'm a safe space for them, I spend a lot of time with them. So I just want them to always know that they have someone. And that's a really cool part of the job that I enjoy the most.
See, I had a teacher that really took he was also the football coach. And, you know, he noticed my disabilities and my challenges. And one day he said, finally, enough's enough. You're going to be on the football team. You're going to go to all the games. You're going to do these things. I'm going to help take care of the costs of this, and this. You're going to be the manager. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And, you know, I was like, no. He was like, this is not a choice. Because he knew I needed to have those social interactions. He knew, right? Like being on a team and being in that environment, you probably know this.
Yep.
Creates a strong group bond, right? Do you think that's what people get from sports in not only because you obviously want to win, you always want to like dominate, you want to do your best, but the biggest thing is really that bond. Do you think that is what is so important? Why some people join sports?
For sure. And I've always been an athlete too. I played competitive volleyball, and I mean, that's what you remember and what you learn things from. You're going to kind of forget what you learned in English class or history class, but you'll always remember kind of those lessons from it's athletics or your friends or the social activities. You always will remember those type of things. So I agree. Just being on a team and being around people maybe you don't get along with or you do get along with, and the power of winning, the power of losing, not being the star, having to sit on the bench sometimes. You can definitely learn a lot from that. So definitely lots of lessons from athletics too.
And the big thing for me, one of the big things for me was after I joined the team, all the players made sure everybody throughout the school knew, because if they picked on me, they would end up against the wall really quick. I'm not saying violence and fighting is good, but when they saw me getting picked on, they didn't hit the person. They just picked him up and went, you need to stop. And the guy was just, never bothered me again.
Yeah.
So the coach saw that it was like a bond that still lasts. I still talk to some of those football players from my graduating class in 2004.
Yeah. That's really cool. And you'll never forget that teacher or coach. And that's what's really special. And they'll never forget you either. And you can stay in contact with them for years. And that can be life-changing, a moment like that, to be seen and heard and to feel like, you know, you are seen by that coach or teacher. I mean, it saves kids' lives. I feel really strongly about that.
And I needed to grow up. Yeah. There were moments where I was acting like a baby. I had my limitations, but earlier in life, I tended to stretch certain things out. And he was like, no, you're not going to play this game with me. You know, and this isn't like sensitive time here, David. No. Like it made me understand there's a time and place for things. There's balance. It's not just one way or the other. There's a middle ground. And with him, he kind of taught me that. He's like, you're capable of stuff. Like, don't think that you're not.
Yeah, it gave you confidence that lasted a long time.
Still to this day.
It's really cool.
Still, I will never forget that teacher, Mr. Bell.
Yeah.
And he made such an impact on me. He went from being a coach and a teacher, and now he's a principal at one of the high schools in my town where my dad still lives, where we grew up. So in California. So it's just fascinating, you know, like you can push through these things in life. That's why athletics, that's why going to school, it's not just the learning. It's so much more.
It is. I agree. Yeah.
Because social interaction, if you don't know how to socially be aware of situations, it's just, you have to learn that. And the only way to learn that is in practice. Because, yeah, you're going to get rejected. Yeah, you're not going to hear yes all the time. You're not going to hear those things. So, you know, to me, that's a huge takeaway for me. What was that social interaction, because, you know, it's important.
Absolutely. I agree.
What do you most enjoy about teaching? Like when you're in the moment, right? And you're up there, what subject do you teach again?
I teach English.
English. I hated English.
A lot of people do.
I hated it. But obviously it's important.
Yeah.
Structures and all that stuff like that. It's obviously important. When you're up there and you're explaining something and you see a light bulb in a student's head pop and go, oh, you know, like what moments like that?
It's pretty special. I mean, I think my favorite part of my job is my relationships with my students. And that's kind of my teaching style, is I put a lot of time into getting to know my students, and I go to their sports games or their band concerts, or I go to their things and I ask them about their life. And I don't really ever start a class without taking at least 5 minutes to ask everyone how their weekend was or what's new. And I feel like that has built a really strong foundation of just, my room is just comfortable for kids, and they feel like they can be themselves, and they feel like they can relax a little bit while learning as well. So that's really important to me, is just to kind of create that type of space, because not everyone's going to love English like I do. And that's just the harsh truth. They're not going to all want to be English teachers. They're not all going to like reading, but they'll remember how the teacher made them feel. And so that's what's most important to me.
And I think you said something, you hit the nail on the head, is the fact that you ask them how they're doing. And you ask, because that's, some students really have a hard time, a hard home life.
Yeah.
A difficult home life. We don't all come from like roses and green grass.
No, most of them do.
You know, it's, you know, nowadays both parents have to work, like, to get by. I mean, so it's for you to ask that, like, that means that you're taking and you're saying, hey, like, how are you? Is anything, what's going on? You know, and that simple thing can actually matter. Because, you know, nowadays with kids, bullying, school, a bad home life, a student could like not have control over their emotions correctly. You know, you see it in the news. You see all these things in the news and you see it. And it's like, for me, for you to take that little bit of time, it only takes a little bit, right? Of time to make sure that student is doing good or doing okay, or you know, so let me ask you this. If a student comes up to you and says, hey, I'm having a hard time at home, how do you balance that with your position of where you're at, right? Because teachers can cross the line. Anybody can cross the line, right? it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your balance point? How do you approach that?
I guess it does take balance, because when you do put your heart and soul into your job, you carry the things with you. So if a kid comes to me and tells me something difficult is happening, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about them, and I'm worrying about them. But I think for a teenager, especially, to approach you in that sense, it really means they trust you and they're willing to talk to you. So I, above all, just try to be a really good listener and give them the best advice I can. And then always provide them with resources if they need it. Thankfully, where I work, we have a ton of resources for mental health, and we have a social worker on campus, and we have lots of counseling. So our school is really good in that manner. But that's also with the relationship thing. If I get to know them, I can notice when maybe they're in a slump or something's going on. If there's a kid that's always in school and they're gone for 2 or 3 days, it should remind me that, hey, maybe something's going on. So I think building the relationships ties in with that too. But if one of them approaches me, that means they're wanting to talk. So I'm always willing to listen, and I'll drop everything to talk to a kid.
Do you ever inform the parent if you suspect, like, how would you bring that up to the social person on campus, or who would you bring that up to if there was an issue, a red flag kind of issue?
Yeah, we have a bunch. It just depends. But we have a lot of resources. So thankfully, kind of for every situation, we have a solution, and we have a lot of really good people on our campus that care deeply for our students and their well-being. So thankfully, we have a lot of support, which is great, because that wasn't always a thing. So
no.
And I know a lot of other places don't have that. So I'm really grateful I am where I am, because our staff really cares about our students.
I want them to be okay. And, you know, because I remember growing up, it's not easy being a teenager. And there's so many different emotions, so many feelings, so much going on that, you know, the littlest, tiniest thing can really affect that student.
I agree. I think as adults, sometimes we get so far removed from what it was like to be a teenager, and that is an advantage to being young, because I was in their shoes not that long ago, and although, you know, everyone says just wait till life starts or wait till you're an adult, like, being a teenager isn't easy either, and I know that they balance a lot and there's a lot of pressure. So it's good to take a step back and kind of put yourself in their shoes and remember they're human too, and they're going to have struggles as well. So.
And you got to be, like, realistic.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's all about, like, each step of learning in school kind of taught you how to solve a problem or how to solve an issue, or, like, you know, when it comes to learning, like, obviously, like, I read a lot, but I read a lot as in audiobooks. So that's, like, what I do. I read through audio, and that way I can go through a book in a day. I can go through a book in a couple days, and instead of, like, my brain goes, like, looks at one word and goes like that, you know? So for me, audio is definitely something that has helped me like get through books.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people use it. So
it's helpful.
Yeah, very helpful.
Audible
Good to have those resources. Tool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Is there a moment in the classroom since you have become a teacher? Was there one moment that really stands out in your brain? Like, either if it was your first day teaching, or can you think of a moment that really stands out for you?
I have a few.
That, like, sticks out, if you want to share.
Yeah, I have a few. I have good ones and bad ones.
No, yeah. Go ahead and share.
So this group that I'm teaching right now, I actually started my career with them. So I had them all as freshmen 3 years ago during COVID, during 2020. We started together, masks and online and everything. And now they're seniors and I have them again. So I've kind of gotten to start with them, go through the years, and now they're going to be graduating and I'm teaching them again. So that's not really one moment, but it's definitely, I've had a lot of reflecting and thinking about them, and it's definitely going to be emotional when they graduate, because this group's really special to me. So this year will be emotional with them, but that's a really special moment. Another one would be we just did a mock trial in my class. And I have this one group. It's just 18 kids in the class, so it's a pretty small group. Most of my classes are like 35 kids, so they're big classes.
Yeah.
But this is just a small group, and they're very tight-knit, and it just went really well. And it was a really cool moment because they all said, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in school, and this is something I'm never going to forget. And they just were so excited and passionate, and that was kind of that light bulb. But to have that with a whole group is really special, and it's a group that I will never forget. They're pretty cool.
Moments like that really stick out in your brain.
Yeah.
You know, like, there are certain teachers that have provided me moments throughout my education life that really, like, helped me out a lot, you know, because it made me stick through. Because teachers are really important. I think they're a huge asset. And I think good teachers, because with the good, you have the bad. I think teaching styles are very different, right? They vary because each person is different. How would you describe the way you teach? Is a lot of it, you know, because it is English, so you can't do a lot of things hands and items and visual. How would you describe your teaching style?
I actually get asked that a lot, and it's hard to describe, but I would say if I've asked the kids to tell me what they think it is, and they said, I have more of a laid-back teaching style. I'm not the type to raise my voice really or get angry, and that can be a downfall of mine as well, and something I'm working on, because I am young and a female, and that can be hard to take the reins of a group of 35 kids. But I have a laid-back classroom. I have bean bags and couches and LED lights and a mini fridge. So I have the room that kids like to come hang out in. But with that, there's also cons, like I said, because we have to learn and work too. But
sounds amazing.
It's a fun space. It
sounds kind of like a Google. You know, Google Campus, because Google Campus has bean bags, lights, and like that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that you say that. It's
a strategy. As far as, you know, if they're comfortable and they have to sit in there, then maybe they'll want to be in there. So, I mean, it's a very open room, lots of discussion, lots of group stuff. There's not a ton of quiet time. I like my students to talk because I think the most value comes from talking to each other. They have really cool things to say, and I think they need to hear each other out. So we do a lot of group collaboration, talking, discussing. I'm not really the type to stand up at the front and lecture for more than 10 minutes. And they know that. I have music playing. So it's a space that kids like to be in. And I pride myself on that. So I would say that's my teaching style.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a cool space.
that is really cool because a space is really important. The design, the openness, the creative feeling, you know, instead of just your standard classroom, you went the opposite.
Yeah. But
you're like, no, we're going to do it this way. And you as a teacher have the ability to say, hey, this is what we are going, this is how we're going to go about it. Right? You have that ability.
Yeah. And I have leeway, you know, if it's a distraction, then it can always be taken away. Like, hey, we're not going to sit in the bean bags and the couches today because it's too distracting. So there's some give and take, but I think English is a creative subject. So if I have a creative space and a space that kids enjoy being in, then maybe they'll feel more want to be in there and want to learn. So it's fun. I have a big group of kids that come in my room every day at lunch and eat, like 20 of them. And I have quite the lunch crew, and they're really fun. So I'm glad that my room is a spot they want to be. That makes me feel good. So I enjoy it.
That's really important. That's essential. I mean, for me, one English teacher that really pops into my head, she was amazing. She got me to really draw upon like my life experiences and like put it into words. And she made me like, I'm a very good person at visualizing a creative idea, but when it comes to writing it down, I'm not so good. Mm-hmm. So she made me like go, okay, tell me this story, but expand on this part and make it more, like tell me more, like she would give me like little questions, little hints, and I'd be like this, like writing for days. Mm-hmm. So it's just like that little bit of things sparked in my brain when she said, she looked at my paper and went, start here. And then she came back over and made another suggestion, and I just started writing. Like the words just like flowed out of my brain. So it just takes that little bit of like, some
kids just need that person who kind of gets them and knows what's going to work for them. And
it's important to look at a student and understand each student is different. Correct? So if you look at all your students, are each individually different than every other student, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you have to
you have to know what works for each one and what doesn't work for each one, and that takes time and it takes a lot of effort, but it's definitely worth it. Because I think I have about 180 students total this year, so it is a lot to balance, but you're with them a lot. I mean, I'm with them 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, so you just have to take the time to get to know them and know what their strengths and their weaknesses are and what they don't like and what helps them succeed. And I think they really have an appreciation when you do put in the effort to see that.
Do you think that matters?
For sure, yeah, because not every kid is the same. Not every kid's going to do well typing on a Chromebook. Some would rather handwrite, or some prefer to work solo. Some prefer to work in groups. So if you can see that, they will remember it for sure. I've had kids, I'm thinking of one specific that was in a pretty loud and crazy class of mine a few years ago, but they were really shy and we did a lot of group work, and I never forced them to work in the group. I would let them work by themselves, and then eventually they kind of made some friends and branched out a little bit, and then they wrote me a letter at the end of the year saying, I will never forget that. You saw me and you saw what I was comfortable with, and then you kind of allowed me to meet these people, and I've never had that before, and it brought me to tears because I never even thought that it meant that much, but kids do see that and remember it. It's pretty cool.
That's an emotional thing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Like, that must have made your heart like go like, wow, this student clearly cares.
For sure.
Like, this person cares. Like, cared about how you took that. You took that small moment, and that small moment was like a spider web to them.
Yeah.
Like, it just, boom. So you taking that, like, that's simple.
Yeah, it's
not that hard. It's like simple. It's a simple thing. Like,
yeah, just for them to, it didn't seem like anything to me. I felt like I was just doing what was best, and for them to, remember it years later and write to me about it, I'll never forget it.
You clearly made an impact.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I'll never forget that student either. I still have the letter. So that's my favorite part of the job.
Because making an impact on their life, you really, teachers do have an impact on every student's life.
Good or bad?
Good or bad,
Yeah.
yes, good or bad. But that's with anything, you know, and I think when it comes down to mindset and it comes down to thinking and learning, you can either have a negative aspect of saying like, hey, I suck at English, or you could say, hey, I struggle with this part in English. There's two different ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
I suck, that's negative. Or I struggle with this part in English. That's more of a positive way to look at it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And that's like what I'm there for. I'm trying to help them see. Not, you know, I'm not good at math. I got through it, but I never excelled at it. And there's going to be kids with English as well. They're going to struggle or they're not going to excel. But if they just make a little bit of progress, some progress is better than none. So I think they need to just see they're capable of a lot more than they think. And they need a person to constantly remind them of that.
I had a lot of homework as a kid. A lot. Like an extreme amount. And now, when I got to college, there was no real homework. I mean, there was some homework, but not like back in school, right? When I was back in school, in high school, my teachers would be like, David, where's your homework? I'm like, it's not done. They're like, well, if you turn it in tomorrow, I'll give you like 50%. And I'm like, that's an F. And they're like, do you want 0? I'm like, no. So they made me have to be responsible, right? Teachers also there's certain things about teaching that fascinate me is they give you the homework. It's your responsibility. So that you're trying to teach that student that it's your responsibility to do the work, to get it done. So wouldn't you agree that that's a skill that like transfers into life?
For sure, yeah. Deadlines, showing up on time, not being late, just being able to work with and get along with people maybe you don't like or a boss that you don't like. All those traits that maybe not seem obvious when you're in school, but they do translate to your adult life. And so, yeah, helping them understand those things.
Because it's their responsibility. Like, it's your responsibility. You don't get the homework, then you get a 0. Like, and when I got to college, my professors weren't, like, hitting me up in email going, where's your homework?
No, they don't
care. In high school, it was a different story. They were, like, on me left and right because I was a student that was kind of, I had a lazy mind in certain aspects. So, you know.
They help you create good habits for life.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is a teacher is not just teaching you the subject, they're teaching you life skills, right?
For sure.
Some teachers are better than others, but that's been said. So here we go. I'm going to read you something else. When students lack motivation, they may struggle to concentrate, participate, or complete assignments, which can impact their educational outcomes. External factors such as a supportive learning environment, effective teaching methods, and the relevance of the material being taught can also influence a student's motivation. How do you help students that are struggling with a particular subject, and yours being English? How do you approach that student that's really just not getting the structure of a sentence or not understanding this is a noun, this is a verb, that's an adjective? Like, how do you approach that student?
That can be hard. Motivation is hard to teach for sure. I guess just, again, it comes with getting to know that kid and understanding what works for them and trying to break it down into simplest terms as possible. Maybe they're a visual learner, maybe they're an auditory learner, or maybe they do best watching videos or watching me do examples. So it just depends on the student. The motivation part is probably the hardest part of teaching because lack of motivation is a big issue for me too, adults as well. So I guess it's just continuously, like you said, with your teachers in high school, reminding them, being on them about it, and letting them know I'm not going to forget. Hey, did you turn it in? Did you turn it in? I'm going to nag you every day. But eventually, hopefully they will.
I got it at the end of my senior year.
Yep.
At the end of my senior year, I got it. When I was in my senior year, I got it. They didn't have to really ask much. But freshman, sophomore, every single day, Dave, where's your homework? I don't do it. Dave, where's your homework? I didn't do it. And eventually they're like, no, it's not going to fly. Like, it's not going to fly. That's not how it works. And I had to go see a counselor at one point, and they're like, David, if you don't complete the work, like, you may have to be held back a certain amount of time, or you might have to repeat it in summer. And after so many things were said, I was like, what? No. And I got on it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes certain students, it takes a lot. Other students, it doesn't take so much. So like you said, understanding the balance and understanding in your toolkit as a teacher how to approach that student, right?
And just trying to get them to see the bigger picture, I guess, has been my best strategy with teaching upperclassmen. Because you get like, I'm just going to drop out, or I'm going to get my GED. But just trying to get them to understand a high school diploma sets them up for success in their life, whatever it is they want to do. If they want to be a welder, or if they want to own a business, or if they do want to go to college, it's the only time in their life that they will get the free education, all the support that they're getting, and just trying to have them see it in that aspect. You'll make more money, you'll have more opportunity, and sometimes that can be hard to see because it seems so far away from them. But that's kind of what's worked best for me lately.
Well, it's funny that you say that they want to make more money, they want to do this, they want to do that, and it's funny that you say that, because if they want to do some of the things that they see on social media, you're gonna want to stick at it.
Yeah, it just sets you up for success, no matter what. I mean,
whatever you determine success is, because success. The definition of success is different between me and you.
Very true.
And a whole bunch of other people. But you want them to find that success, right? That's what you're trying to do.
There's never a kid on graduation day that regrets doing what they did to get their moment to walk across the stage and get their diploma. It's a pretty special day. So I just try to get them to see it in that aspect. And even if it's not the money or their career, it's you finished this and you stuck to it and you did it. And yes, there might have been struggles and you might have been lazy some days or not motivated. You stuck it out and you did it and you got your diploma. And I think that's something to celebrate. So I try to remind them of that. Not everyone can do it. And if you can be one of the ones who did, then hopefully that can kind of show themselves that they have grit and they can get through hard things in life too.
And it's, with anything like with video creation and stuff like that, you have to have some knowledge there. It takes a lot. Like some people write scripts for there's certain YouTubers that I watch that only release like one video every like 3 to 6 months, and that video gets like 22 million or 30 million views. It's because they wrote a script, they edited for months,
put the time
in, and they just wanted to go after it, but they went after it because they had the base knowledge from where they, like learning, like reading, and these basic things actually do end up getting into content creation.
Yeah, it's a good foundation.
You have to know how to be able to speak or write,
For sure.
If you want to do that. What would you say you most enjoy about teaching?
Just getting to know the kids. I think just laughing with them and having fun and all of that is probably my favorite part. I love English and I love reading and teaching novels, and I think it's a great subject and it's a really important subject, but I really just enjoy being around young people and having fun and being someone that impacted their life positively and being a good role model for them.
What's the least?
I think the hardest part is I take things personal, and that's something I'm working on. I'm trying to
You and me
remind
both.
myself of that not everyone's going to like me, and that's something I struggled with at first.
Oh, that's so funny that you say that, because me being on the internet
yeah.
and uploading as much as I do, I have almost 900 videos on YouTube. And I get some people that really hate my guts. But then I have a bunch more that really like me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get what you just said. It's
hard. I've lost sleep over it.
Oh, some stuff some people say, just like, I'm like,
yeah.
You know, but like, they're just somebody behind the keyboard.
Yep.
You know, like they're just somebody behind a keyboard, but for you, there's somebody right in your face.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's probably tough to hear that.
Yeah, it can be hard, and that's where I've struggled the most, I think. But I mean, all I can do is I do my best to connect with every kid, and I am just coming to terms that not every kid is going to love me or even like me, and that's okay. As long as I do what I can and put my best foot forward and make sure they're learning what they're supposed to learn and getting in what they're supposed to, you're not going to always make everybody happy, and that's just life. And I'm definitely a people person and a people pleaser, so that's been a hard pill for me to swallow, but I'm getting better at it and working on it every day.
I totally agree. You said it really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's something that, like, you can't please the world.
No.
You can't make all the things to make everybody like you, because that doesn't exist.
No.
Like, and I think us as people, and especially myself, I'm an emotional person, so I take things.
Me too.
I take things really hard sometimes, because that's just who I am. I have a big heart and I care. So it's like, when you're emotionally open like that, it's really hard.
Yeah, it is. I agree. But it's life, and it's definitely something I'm always working on, and I think I've gotten better since I started. But yeah, it can be difficult if you wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's definitely me. So
I'm in that same boat right there. What kinds of strategies or activities that you do to keep your student interested in learning? And you just said the mock trial that you is that something that you think that really engages the students, not just individually but as a whole?
Yeah, I just try to modify whatever we're doing and make it fun. I think a lot of it has to do with the adult in the room. So if I believe in it and I stand behind it and I'm fun and I throw jokes in there and I'm not monotonous the whole time, and I think that has a lot to do with it. But, obviously there's books that we've been doing forever that kids aren't going to find fun, books that are hundreds of years old that I read, that my parents read, that maybe even my grandparents read in school. But it's delivery, and if you can get them to buy into it by making it engaging, I think that every kid can enjoy it. And just coming up with activities that are fun, having them move around and get up and talk and sometimes draw or write or do all different things. It's good for them to not just be sitting in the same place doing the same thing for an hour. So just kind of making classes engaging in that sense.
It kind of goes back to how we were in first grade. Because I don't know if you remember, but you probably have some sort of an idea. When you're in first grade and it's all play, toys everywhere, interaction, right? When you're in first grade, there's tons of just all sorts of stuff everywhere. It's not just structure like later in. So you've actually transformed the later years of education into a similar environment as
Yeah, you have to. I mean, not
instead of
every
stale,
kid.
like,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. We were just talking about it today. We're starting Hamlet with seniors, which is Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And you say Shakespeare to teenagers and they dread it. But there's ways to make it fun and you just have to be creative with it. And that's another fun part of the job. Just put it in their terms and modernize it a little bit. And they're still going to get out of it what the intent was. You just have to make it engaging.
And I think that's with anything in life. You want to make something that somebody's going to go, oh, wow, that looks cool, or that's information that I want to interact with. And I think that's kind of goes into content creation too, is like you want to create things that people are going to get inspired by or get engaged by. And I think that you as a teacher doing it that way is like really good because there's no one way a student learns.
No, yeah, definitely.
It's better to learn like hands-on sometimes, or it's better to teach it this way, or is it better to... So you're utilizing all these different tools and all these different things to kind of affect their life in the best way the way they learn, right? And I think that's, as a teacher, that's really good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be a part of it.
Did anybody give you advice when you first got into teaching?
I had a lot of people tell me not to do it, just because it is such a hard job. But I mean, yes, I got a lot of advice from a lot of different teachers and professors. I student taught under a really amazing teacher, who I'll never forget. And he taught me a lot, at North Valley High School in Reno. That's where I student taught, but it got cut short because of COVID. And then I started my career, but I mean, I got a lot of different advice from different teachers, and I try to always take all of that into account and then kind of make it my own, because that's what makes a good teacher, is making it your own and having your own style and doing what works for you, because no one will do things the same.
What advice would you give to a brand new teacher, right? Like they're brand new on the job. It's their first week, and they come to you and say, hey, do you have any tips? Do you have any advice that you can give? What's something that you would say to just,
I think I would say that it's called classroom management is the most important, like being able to rein in your class and get them to all be quiet and looking at you when you're talking. Because once you have your classroom management hammered in, then you can start to have more fun, and you can't really retract. Like you can't try to become stricter at the end of the year, because they're going to just be like, not happening. But if you start out with firm rules and good classroom management, then you can kind of loosen up throughout the year. And I would also say just to be yourself, like as an individual, and that will kind of flow into your teaching style. The kids are going to like you for who you are. So don't try to be like your favorite teacher that you had in high school, because you're not that person. You're you. So figure out what works for you and just always build on that. I mean, the teacher I was when I started 3 years ago, I'm a lot different now. I mean, a lot of my principles are still the same, but I feel like I've found what works for me and what's made me Miss Saletti, and what the kids know as Miss Saletti. I have like my rep that is kind of fits to me as a teacher, versus someone else. It's going to be different, but you can't be like any other teacher. You have to be your own, and the kids will respect that.
That's actually translate into life. You have to be who you are. You have to be authentic. You can't try to act like a Joe Rogan or, somebody like PewDiePie or, Logan Paul, or you that's not authentic.
No, yeah.
And people like authentic.
For sure. Authenticity is huge. And uh, admitting to mistakes and telling them, hey, I'm learning with you. That was my big thing when I first started. Like, I'm young too. Let's have fun and learn together. I'm going to make mistakes. And for them to be human and for them to see that, I think teenagers respect that a lot.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're approaching them in a way where you're not thinking that you're above them.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You're not placing yourself above that student. And I think that's where some teachers really lose it with some students. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know they do not think that I think I'm above them at all. I make a lot of mistakes all the time and they correct me and we laugh about it. I mean, that's life. They know I'm not perfect and I'm human as well. And I think that's why we do have the relationships that we do. Because I'm not like a robot or, I'm just like them. So.
And you approach them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, because I've met teachers, I've had teachers that feel like they're above.
Mm-hmm.
They're above me. And it's like, okay, like you're going to have those. Mm-hmm. But it's the biggest thing in life is to focus on the good, to focus on the positive, to focus on that, right? Like focus on the direction and where your life wants, where you want to take your life, where you want to take that your life in that direction. And so learning is a process, right? It never ends.
Yeah, you're always learning. I mean, even teachers that have been in it for 30 years say they learn every day. And that's what's cool about not just teaching, but any career and just life, where we as humans constantly are looking to learn and get better and improve ourselves and try new things. And I try to foster that to the kids every day.
And I think that's really important. What courses or what different educational programs or different things do you constantly look at to help you stay in the loop of education? Because education, new techniques, right?
Yeah.
Come out, new things happen in education. Do you believe in like learning those, or do you believe in having your mind fixed in a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, which is I want to continue to have that for myself to be the best teacher I can?
No, you have to be constantly willing to do those type of things. It's actually required for my license as a teacher. I have to take courses every few years to renew my licensure and be qualified to be in the classroom. So I got my master's degree and I had to take a course online, and our district is constantly offering them. So they really encourage the growth mindset as well, because education is constantly changing. I mean, teachers who were in it for 25 years and then COVID happened had to relearn everything they had ever done. So you have to have a growth mindset in education, or, I mean, it's constantly changing.
Do you think a lot of education, because they reach you when they're older, right? Do you think early childhood education matters?
For sure. Absolutely. I think it's really important.
Why?
They build the foundation for us at the higher level. I mean, even if they're doing simpler tasks like simpler math and simpler writing, the foundation that they build at that level, they foster the loving to read, or the habit of reading is good for you or writing is good for you. And if they don't foster that at a young age, then when they get to us, it's a lot harder. So those years are just as crucial. I could never do the younger kids, so I give a lot of kudos to elementary and middle school teachers. So it's all important.
Do you think even earlier than that, like, how they have like these early childhood daycare centers or early childhood care centers? There's someone that has helped direct my life in a big way, and she is in early childhood education, and she helps people that own centers on how to be the best center for their kids and for their parents. that matters.
For sure.
Because that teaches the kids, even if they're playing with sand and blocks, these are little kids. Don't you think that helps their interactions with other students? Do you think that base level early childhood education matters?
Oh, of course. I think it's maybe one of the most important things because that's where they're learning how to behave, how to get along with others, how to work together. I mean, even if it's just on the playground, like you said, they foster habits at that age and they do what they see. So it's really important. And it all builds on each other throughout the years. I mean, being in preschool is important. 5th grade, 6th grade, middle school, you learn a lot. I mean, it all builds to high school and graduating. So, I mean, it's continuous.
Because there's some centers and there's some early childhood programs around the nation that don't keep up with like the new learning techniques in early childhood education or education in general. There are certain teachers that don't keep themselves as up to date with some of the new learning things, and it affects their teaching because they're stuck in that mindset. They're stuck.
You have to be willing to grow and change, or it's going to harm the kids.
And really, it can be negative. And that's when it comes to just caring for the students and like you do, and having that focus on them and focusing on what they want and what they want to achieve, because all those things add up, like you said. All those things add up, and even later in life as well, after they get out of school, because these are just essential things that learning teaches you. And being a teacher, all about that stuff. The biggest thing for me is that I was in special education. So throughout my whole life, through like elementary, middle, high school, and even college, I learned differently. It takes me a long time. So they gave me longer amount of test time and all that. Do you think special education teachers also can really make a difference? Especially 100%. In the students that are like not at the level of other students?
Yeah, I think they deserve way more recognition than they get. And I think it's so important to have good people, and we call it inclusive education at my school that I work at. And they're so important. I think they are underpaid and they need to be recognized more because they do so much. And you truly, you have to have a special heart to work in that field. And we need more good people that can do that job. And they're so important.
And the class sizes that I was in was much smaller in special education. We had a teacher's aide in the classroom. There was always this sense of, if you're not getting it delivered this way, there's other materials that they can use to help you learn the same subject, but in that way that you understand it. So if you look at a normal English class and you went to a special education English class, there's a humongous difference in subject matter, in what level of book that they're teaching, but the foundations were the same. Does it make sense?
Yeah. The educational term would be differentiation. So kind of you differentiate your instruction. So if it's not working for a kid, you change it to work for them, or you change the text or what they're reading, or kind of like you're saying. So that's really important in education because, again, every kid is different.
Because we did the same, we did English, but we just did a much simpler version of the subject, right? Like I had special education English, special education math, and a tutoring class. Those were all special education. All my other classes, normal. So when I went to my other classes, I'm like, oh, I'm like sitting in class and there's like, the classrooms are freaking uber packed. And I'm like, oh, it's a little more nerve wracking, but like, it kind of helped me realize like, they're not going to baby you, but they're also they don't want you to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like having a special education teacher, they definitely matter.
Yeah, they're very important.
And it's more hands-on in some of those classes that I was involved with in special education. They took more time. They, a lot of things were explained in more of a simple way, and not saying that like I like just walked through high school, but I think having that is important.
Super important. Yeah, it all goes together and they're crucial in our educational system for sure.
Do they still have PE?
Yeah.
Is it an hour, I think?
We do block schedule, so it's about an hour and a half. So we have PE, weight training, group fitness, basketball, football. We have all the different ones.
So
strength training.
When does school start?
7:30.
When does it end?
2:11.
Okay.
So each class, we have A days and B days. So they see 1st, 3rd, 7th one day, 2, 4, 6 one day.
Oh.
And then it's called a block schedule. So they're about an hour and like 38 minutes. And they have a nutrition break and a lunch.
Because there was, when I was in school, it was like an hour for this class. You go to your 6 periods, right? So I guess that's different now?
Yeah, it's a little bit, every school does it differently though.
Okay.
So I think
there's no set stand.
No, everyone does things differently. That's just how we do it.
Do you think that's more helpful?
I like the block schedule. Yeah, I mean, I see them every other day, the groups of kids, and gives us enough time to get things done. Or like if you teach science, you can do a lab, and you can, have enough time to clean up and do all the setup and everything. So I like the block schedule a lot.
An hour and a half?
About, yeah. So then it gives us time to do a warm-up, talk about it, read something, do an assignment, watch a video. It just allows a lot of space between things. And
I've never heard of that block schedule. I've only heard of when I was in school,
class.
Which was like an hour, and you're like hit like left and right.
Lots less running around the school, and the kids like it. I don't think they'd like if they saw all 7 other classes in one day, because they'd be about 40 minutes, and they'd be running all over the place.
Plus, the amount of homework that oh man, like, yeah, 2 of my classes didn't have homework, but 4 of my classes did. And so it was like, every day. It was like I had this massive amount of homework.
Yeah.
And so I think block scheduling,
it spreads it out for them.
I think it's more helpful.
Yeah, they like it. It works well for us.
What would you say is a takeaway from like our discussion today between us? Like, what's something that you would say? What was a takeaway?
I would say a lot of things, but I think all the things that we're doing, whether it be teaching, social media, running a business, being a chef, being a welder, like we all are connected, and we all have the same struggles, and we all have the cool things about our jobs, but I think we all are connected in some way, and that's important. That's what's important about being a human, and that's what I'm trying to teach them as a teacher.
Because it takes everyone for this whole world to go round.
Yeah.
Okay. you don't know how to build a farmhouse by yourself. You don't know how to build a tractor by yourself. You can't do every single. We all need each other, right? It's life. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it takes all kinds for sure. And, you know, we're all good at some things and bad at others, but that's kind of what makes the world go round. And it's important to just be a good person, have empathy, be kind, try to put yourself in other people's shoes sometimes. And that's what I would take away.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any final thoughts or a message that you want to put out there to the world about teaching, about something that can, like, something in your head, anything that you want to say?
I mean, even if it's not teaching,
or just in general.
Okay.
Just in general.
I think it's really important to do what you love and love what you do. That's a saying my mom always told me, and that she had on a plaque at my parents owned a restaurant my whole life. And they always instilled in me that if you do what you love, you will love each day. And I think that's really important. So I hope young people can understand that. Find what you're passionate about and go do it.
And I think the thing too is to always, you know, ask, like I did with you.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand. They get in their own shell, and for their content to just get out there more and to get connected to people more, it's important to do this.
Yeah. You never know what could happen, and it's okay to face rejection. I mean, the worst that can happen sometimes is someone says no, and you will move on. And
even though it sucks.
Yeah.
it's not fun hearing the word no. You know, it isn't. But yeah, I think that's really, really important.
For sure.
And so, yeah, I just appreciate you, you know, coming on my podcast and doing that video with me here at the gym. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate you as a teacher because you matter. You matter to a lot of people. So
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Never be afraid to let them know what you sell. And you can do it too, I'm just like you. Some days I'm just not in the mood. I'm wishing everybody good luck. Trying to be so positive, waking up. Hoping just ain't enough. I'm finna get to it, I'm pulling up. I'm gonna do my best. I ain't thinking about the rest. I know you hate it, cause I'm motivated. Might have disabilities, check up my ability.